660 fire burning holes in the lies they stitch like seams. Pull the threads, unravel dreams. Eyes wide open, can't unsee. Chains they wrapped in secrecy. Freedom whispers loud and bold. Feel the heat, this truth ain't cold. Tin Hat Thursday, light the flame. Sparks ignite, don't play the game. Rip it open, break the mold. Truth is fire, truth is gold. Cloaks and shadows, puppet strings. Whisper lies, the devil sings. But the rabbit digs too deep. Unveils secrets meant to keep. Eyes like daggers cut the dark. Blazing trails ignite the spark. We're the thunder in the storm. Breaking free from their own norm. Tin Hat Thursday, light the flame.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Ignite, don't play the game. Rip it open, break the mold. Truth is fire, truth is gold. Eyes like daggers cut the dark. Blazing trails ignite the spark. We're the thunder in the storm. Breaking free from their own norm. Tin Hat Thursday, light the flame. Sparks ignite, don't play the game. Rip it
Good evening and welcome to Tin Hat Thursday. It is Thursday, June 11th, 2026. I am Screech Scott,
And I am Red.
and we're coming to you live from our perch high above the western shores of Lake Michigan, where we will be screaming 360 degrees of truth. We want to thank you for joining us on Tin Hat Thursday and hope that you will join us right here on Ripon Common Sense Radio each and every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central. If you are listening on Rumble or over on YouTube, we invite you to hop on over to riponrabbithole.com and join the rest of Tin Hat Nation in the VIP Backstage Lounge. The Backstage Lounge is free and always will be. Go to riponrabbithole.com. Click on the Backstage 24/7 Lounge in the taskbar. Scroll down until you see the big red... Scroll down until you see the Backstage Lounge and click on that big red Enter Now button. Allow the permissives, put in your name and join the fun. Just remember to keep yourself muted until the show ends. Listen to the show and then hang around for some spirited discussion with others. The Backstage Lounge is a great place to meet new friends and talk about anything that you want to. And I can speak from experience when I say that you will often find screech owls deep into the early AM hours. That is riponrabbithole.com, riponrabbithole.com. And Amanda was one of those hanging out deep into the early AM hours this morning. I think she may have fallen asleep right after a lengthy discussion. And I think you put the links to the Backstage
Yes, I did.
in the chat.
And yes, in both chats on Rumble and on YouTube.
So if you want to join all the folks in the Backstage, we've got Tammy and Wetzel and Tommy and Corey B, Jenny, Christine, RJ, Jeremy, Studio B, Ripon Rabbit Hole. Welcome everybody. Well, Red, we had a big late night last night. We had a great discussion.
Oh, yeah.
As we the people went after WEC and exposed some of their issues.
Along with their own words.
Along with their own
at
words.
least one of them.
And we had a good conversation backstage after the show, which is oftentimes where some of the best conversation takes place. So I hope tonight, after tonight's show, I hope that people will come into the Backstage, the folks over on Rumble and YouTube, and join that conversation.
Yes, because what's said in the backstage stays in the backstage. So whatever we discuss back there off air, you won't know it unless you come over and participate.
Check it out. And last night we talked about WEC for an hour, and then the
And then
backstage
some.
stuff.
Yep.
And we kind of took the lead because our guest tonight comes from a group who's been pretty good at going after WEC and exposing their
Absolutely.
deficiencies. And
Thankfully.
we have a big show lined up, folks, tonight, and I'm going to tell you right up front that we may not get all the content in, and we don't want to go too much beyond an hour because we lose some people who fall asleep or have to get up and go to work.
You're right.
So this may require a part 2, and if it does, our special guest will be back to complete the conversation.
Yes, because this is something that needs to be discussed.
Oh my gosh, Red, I was
more than you know.
This is crazy, and so I think without further ado, let's bring on our very special guest. Please give a warm Tin Hat Nation welcome to our very special guest, Jim Spodick. Hello, Jim. Can you hear us?
I can. Glad to be on your show.
Awesome.
God, Red.
So
It's
Jim,
great to have you.
Jim, I know everybody in the backstage is familiar with hot government,
Right.
but maybe for those folks listening or folks who are tuning in for the first time, why don't you just give some idea what hot government is all about?
Okay. HOT stands for Honest, Open, Transparent Government. It actually started roughly, it was a group of people in Racine who got together at a alderman asking for open records. We went down to go to the court hearing, and the room was locked. It was a sealed courtroom, and we met people that had been similar to, and then a couple of years later, we formed hot government in a bar, and we incorporated, and we started to investigate, and we really look very close at the political arena, I guess you'd say. We look at things that the news media obviously has not covered. We filed some suits. We also went to the Supreme Court. We've got some really talented people. Nobody gets paid. It's all volunteer, and we've made some great friends all over the state. We've made some great associations with different groups. So if you love freedom and you love our country, HOT's for you. And they're all supporters. We got support. Everybody's a supporter. We look at it that way.
Awesome, and of course the backstage crew that we're all very familiar with HOT, and in fact many of these people have been to HOT meetings and participated in HOT events, and I like to say that you guys are the premier group in Wisconsin without a doubt.
Absolutely.
You guys are the model that all patriot groups or We the People groups could strive to be.
No, thanks. Good.
So,
Yeah.
you talked about mainstream media not covering a lot of the things that you guys have disclosed, and maybe this is one of those things, Jim, because most of us knew nothing about what you're going to talk about tonight.
I didn't have a clue.
So maybe you can give our listeners like the short version before we jump into this of what this case is about.
Okay, so like we in Racine County, there was a sheriff's deputy. He got picked up for basically just distributing child pornography. He eventually was charged with 45 felonies, and then sentenced to 65 years. 65 years by a judge in Racine County. As we looked at this, and so one of the captains that did the investigation, I guess, actually knew that this guy was a bad egg in the sheriff's department prior to. Now, we didn't know that right away, but now she is a captain running for a sheriff in Racine County, and obviously we're concerned about that. So we started to do some investigation, and so that pretty much kicked everything off. This was something that we didn't really understand. We do now because we did some investigating, and that's where we're at, and that's why we're here tonight.
So you guys really dug deep, and now it's my understanding that these records were hidden from the public until a court ordered their release. And can you walk us through what happened there?
Right. So what happened was, her name's Carrie Mandigal, and she was a captain with the department. What happened was she was now the sheriff that we have in Racine County was retiring. He endorsed her for the next sheriff's position. Not only her, Robin Voss, Speaker of the Assembly, our county exec, our DA, the president of a couple of these little communities. I mean, it was just so obvious that this was the appointed pick. And that's what, that's what H.O.T looks at. Like there's something out of the alignment is off, something's wrong, And I think that's where we started to investigate. So there were some open records done on her HR, her employment with the sheriff's department. She then went to court, wanted to keep that quiet or silence, and she filed a lawsuit to Racine County, which, if you work for the state or the counties, you can file that and say you want to keep these records hidden from the public. She did go to court. The judge said, no, this is public record, then they should be released. The judge said, I'll give you 10 days or 20 days to make your decision as if you are going to want to appeal this, which would then take her more than likely past the election date, the campaign. What she did, though, she kind of pivoted and said, oh, I have nothing to hide. So she opened it up. Well, you're hiding it. Now all of a sudden everything's fine. And she writes a nice press release that talks about I've got nothing to hide. You can look at it and there's nothing here. So basically what they were hoping for, and I think is what their strategy was, to keep this quiet. And then, if we release it and we say there's nothing, nobody's going to look at it. And that's basically where it laid. And of course, that's something we don't do.
Right. So you're saying, Jim, then if she had gone the appeal route, she probably could have taken this out beyond the primary, just
Correct.
Filing the appeal. But instead of that, she said, no, let's just open them up. And by being transparent, and I use that term loosely, nobody would think there's anything to look into.
Scott, and I really think there's some arrogance there. I think they really believe that because you had this political powerhouse putting her in place, that they thought, we'll just do what we need to do to get her in. There's no one else running. It just so happens one of our supporters, Henry Perez, who is got law enforcement history, is running also for sheriff in the area, in Racine County. So I think they just assumed this was the pick. This is who it's going to be, and that was it.
Okay. So now there was an investigation, but this wasn't. Am I right? This wasn't H.O.T's investigation initially?
Correct. It was done by. They did their own investigation on incidents that she had done over the years from 2006 to, just recently 2025, and she had a number of incidents in her employment history. One was, initially she let in 2006, she let someone that got picked up with, I think, 8 kilos of coke in the car. And she let him use a phone. Well, this individual called the stash house, told him dump the guns, dump the drugs, and apparently there was a major federal investigation going on at the time, which completely blew it out. And she was reprimanded, got a 1-day suspension for that. Then later on, there was another drug bust where there were apparently some chocolate-covered cherries, which she took from the crime scene and then not only ate some of them, actually gave them to some of the officers at the police patrol station. And, of course, they were concerned that, this could have been laced with drugs. It was a crime scene. And, of course, again, she's reprimanded for it. Again, a 1-day, all in-house. And then, of course, this last one where this pedophile, there's no other word for this guy, I could go deeper, but a pedophile was on the police force and using this as I guess you'd call it, he's a predator really, is what he was. and she knew about this. And then they did an investigation, but it was in-house. It was done by a local attorney firm. The attorney was Sam Hall, and he found her that she had known about this, had been given information from other officers that there were problems, realistically back to 2 years when they did the discovery of it. But what was interesting is it was held in-house. There was no outside, it wasn't Kenosha or Milwaukee or another police agency looking into her, I guess, lack of action to control this guy. And there was a lot of different things that went on once this kind of came together. But we looked at it, or at least I looked at it initially as kind of like a demolition, an internal demolition. We're gonna give her a suspension, which they did 10 days. But recently found out that 10-day suspension was almost like a personal days. You can take those 10 days off. You don't get paid, but you can use them at will. It's not like you're off 10 days and being punished for it. So there's some internal protections, I guess, within it. But that was really the internal investigation. I was able to read it. The community was able to read it. And when I read it, and I think some of the other people at H.O.T, and we knew there's more to this story. So that's actually when I went to H.O.T at one of the meetings, and I said I'd like to have the opportunity to go by the transcripts from the Kite trial, which was the pedophile, and they gave me the okay. I went down and I got the transcripts, and that's where it started to really, the investigation really started.
Okay, so now this Kite that you're talking about, this is Preston Kite, and he was a county sheriff,
Right. He was a deputy.
A deputy,
Right.
with Racine County.
Correct.
So can you walk the audience through his arrest and how it actually happened? And before you do that, Jim, because I don't know how graphic you're going to be, I know that he was a pretty evil guy, and I will just warn anybody, if you're listening with young children in the room, or if you're listening on demand and your children are near your side, you may want to get them entertained with something that a child may not want to, or you may not want your children to hear what Jim may share at this point. So
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Jim. Let's talk about Preston Kite, the deputy for Racine County.
Okay, so I'm just going to step back a little bit. I went to Racine County, the courthouse. I got the transcript and I paid for it, and I'm walking out and I'm reading it as I go to my car. And I got to tell you, I'm not usually shocked by too much. This literally shocked me. I actually sat down in the car and started to read. I couldn't believe what I was reading, that this was going on in the sheriff's department in Racine County. So what it was Preston Kite was a and I'm not going to get real graphic, Scott, because there's documents out there that I can direct you to. We've got them online that you can read for yourself. Because it did take me a couple days to get through it. I had to stop reading because it's dark. He deputy with the Racine County Sheriff's Department. What happened was, and the way he got caught. Now you have to remember, we go back a couple of years. This Carrie Mandigal was told that. One of the instances was that he was being sent, another officer came to her and said, and other officers are getting dick pics from this officer. Now we're talking probably about a year and a half earlier than this arrest. Again, a little bit later, she stops someone and someone stops her and says, you may have to talk to this Kite. He's creating these issues. Well, we're going to talk to him about it. Well, it continued on like this unregistered complaints in things that happened in the sheriff's department. So she basically was really not doing her job at this time. And I think in one of our audios we have it. If you were an HR and you were doing soliciting or inappropriate behavior in your corporate job, HR would be all over you. Matter of fact, you'd be walking out the door. Apparently, in the sheriff's department, that doesn't happen. But come to find out that, I don't know if she was, there's a lot of connections with her and Kite, within the force. Apparently she was either renting a place to kite, or her mother was. So there were some connections here that maybe she didn't want to expose because, there's some personal gain for her. That I don't know. But once I got to the car, we'll go back to the actual transcript.
Jim, before you go on, when you refer to she, we're talking about Madrigal, correct? She
Who
was
is the captain?
she was a captain, and now she is a candidate for the sheriff in Racine County.
Correct.
Okay, go on.
So I started to look at the transcript, and I read the complaint. I had also gotten a complaint, and I read the complaint. Well, what has happened? I'm no expert at this, but there are apps out there that are that you don't need a name, you don't need a password, you don't need a phone number. So you can get on these apps, and it will take you to, I guess, a system, something like Telegram or one of these but you use a username on there, and you can connect, and it's kind of a gay man hookup site. Well, he happens to be on this. He goes to the Highway 20 I-94 Petrol Mart. It goes to the Taco Bell bathroom, and he apparently texts, or however, apparently there's a geo tracking that can distinguish if there's someone within the vicinity. I mean, literally within walking distance, and they can say, "Hey, I'm in the bathroom. You want to hook up or whatever," and that could ping. Well, he's in this bathroom, fully uniformed. His patrol car is parked outside, and he's in the bathroom. Well, he sees someone in there on the same app. He texts him, and he says, "I'm in the bathroom." So this guy, who obviously is gay, is driving from Illinois into Wisconsin. Apparently, he goes into the bathroom. This guy swings the door of the stall open. He's doing himself in his uniform. This guy is paranoid because it's a cop in uniform, and he says, "I'm a cop. This is what I do," or something. This guy leaves. As he leaves out of the Petrol Mart, he sees the cop car. He takes a picture of it. Cop car 5051 contacts Racine. Racine apparently makes their way out there, but actually Kenosha comes out there, and there's a young guy, a young officer, apparently he's pretty sharp, starts to question this kite. Well, eventually this guy gets his phone, and then the phone, it just is just full of child pornography. We're talking toddlers, we're talking just horrific things. And so they arrest him at that point, at least at some point there. They take his phone. Now you have to remember, this is an important part. They take his phone and lock it up. But the connections he had on the phone, all of a sudden, that same day, that same time, they started to wipe their other phones. So what they were doing was, there was a network. There was an actual network working within the Racine Sheriff's Department. And it went to Oconomowoc, it went to Appleton, it went to, I can't even name them all, Winnebago County. And there were other individuals that were connected to this network that he was on. And they were trading photographs. And I mean, literally, I mean, the descriptions and the texts that were in the complaint. He had a name, I think Matt 69, and his friend that was actually the guy that he was talking to at the time on that day that they actually were able to get that information was his name was Adam Westbrook. He was a HR director in the city of, and I don't have it offhand, he was in Sheboygan as an attorney, but then he got a job as a HR director in another community. But there were other ones, and there were a number of connections. But anyway, that was the original arrest. That's where it started. And so once I got the transcript, and then I read the court documents, I mean, it just went deeper and deeper down. And so
Jim, and I don't know where I read, if I read this, I can't remember, because I read and watched so many things, but this, whatever platform this detective or this deputy was using where he was connecting with other people. Is it true that they were using like the pizza emojis and some of these things attached to pedophilia that we've heard about?
Absolutely. It was the pizza emoji. You know, we all heard about Pizzagate and the different things that we're aware of now. What I wasn't aware of was a baby bottle. A baby bottle means toddler. So there were, and I don't want to go into the depth of it. You can read it, but I mean the one in I don't know if it was actually that time. He was in Outagamie County. He lived, but he had taken a 4 or 5 year old to Mount Olympus in the Wisconsin Dells, and he was raping this young boy, and this was being sent to Kite in Racine County, and and they were discussing it, and in the court when he was sentenced, the judge Fredrickson literally brought that up and said how horrific of an individual you are. You know, where this young boy is, and you know he was being abused, but you did nothing because he was trying to say, "Oh, I'm a good guy. There's nothing there. I'm actually a good guy. Just I'm in a dark place in my life. Well, the judge didn't buy it, and he actually the recommendation was 55 years. He got 65 years. So, and there's Scott. There are 20, 30 maybe incidents like that they were able to scrub off this phone. But it's not just that, and I don't know how far you want me to go, but there's other individuals. And the reason I want to come on here is because I know there's people all over the state. Outagamie County, this was an individual. Oconomowoc, Appleton. This network was there. And here's the thing that when I went back and I thought, okay, let's look at this original report that was done within the Racine County on this Mandigal, that's captain, that gave her a 10-day suspension. I looked at it, thought, well, why wasn't any of this information? It's in the complaint, it's in the sentencing transcript, but you see nothing in the report that this was extended beyond Racine County. This was a network that these people had, and these people these are dog groomers, and I don't even want to get into the bestiality yet. This is another one. He was abusing animals. Not only him, there was dog groomers in I think Appleton. He had a dog grooming spot. They would say it's easy to pick up strays. This is how you got to do it. And I mean, it went into there's a whole nother world that it's hard to imagine. And it's in the transcripts, it's in the complaints where he talks about cows and he talks about multiple dogs. And in the transcript, there's another where the judge says to the to Kite, because one of the neighbors had wrote a positive, recommendation. Don't be real hard on him, because in this letter he's saying to the judge, he is a wonderful neighbor. When I go on vacation, he takes care of my dogs. And the judge actually came back and said, he absolutely does not know you, and I can only imagine what you did with those dogs. But it even goes deeper. Now we're talking about a employee of Racine County. I don't want to call it the sheriff's department, if she may be of another part of the county. But she was in the, I would say the sheriff family. She used the word family, and I'm sure that was what she was assuming. It was her family. He would take their dog, and in the sentencing, they give her $619.50 because she had to take her dog to the vet. It was a dog they bred. Her husband was a breeder. He was out somewhere else in training for 3 months, and during this time, the dog was abused. The judge allowed her to get $619 for the vet bill because of the examination it had to have, but also her 9-year-old boy was abused by this guy, and And like she says, and I not only was I traumatized, my animal is traumatized. I mean, it's almost impossible to believe that this is going on. But what's more impossible to believe that this network functioned. I think it was Snips or Snipes, and it was this network that they connect to, and they literally trade pornographic video discussions. I mean, it's dark, it's satanic. I don't know how else to explain it, but and there's a lot of it. So what I think the goal was at first was to expose this 10-day suspension for something that was terrible, and it happened in Racine County, but it's all over the state. And I got to believe that this moves considerably further. So
And,
you know, I go into more detail, Scott, but I'm not going to.
and you know, you've talked about the connections to counties that are near my home, and many of the people in the backstage. I mean, they live in some of these counties that you
Right.
mentioned, and these are just the people that were identified through this one deputy in Racine. And I mean, that the tentacles, you know, are far reaching and probably much further than the counties you listed.
Well,
Scott,
I read about 4 years ago, on Telegram, one post, and all it said was all roads lead to Racine. And you know what? With what you're bringing to us right now, it just reminds me of that post. Roads lead to Racine. So what else comes out of there?
yeah, you know, one of the other things was in the sentencing document, they let Kite, the judge lets Kite speak. And he says to the judge, well, I also had multiple sex partners in my department that I had, including a supervisor and an assistant DA from another county. Now, this is his statement to the judge. And he said, you know, I'm in a dark place, and you know, I'm a failed man. But I mean, this again, where is this report in the Racine, you know, of this report of what actually went on? I mean, completely no investigation of any sort with any of this. So
And I just want to reiterate, Jim, now. So when Madrigal, I think that's her name, when other officers came to her and said, we've got a problem with this Kite, and she dealt with it internally with no records being made. I mean, this was before any of this broke, correct?
right, correct. She actually told one of them. That he came directly to her, and he said he is a pedophile, and she said, "Buddy, you're on thin ice." And basically saying, you know, we're not going to investigate, and if you want to keep talking about this, you're going to have a hard time. So, you know, obviously, I'm a lower ranked deputy. I'm not going to, you know, challenge my supervisor, my higher ranking. So again, it doesn't go. But what was more interesting, when they finally came out and he was arrested and he's brought on charges, she has a meeting with the staff or the other deputies, and says she didn't know anything about this, and that if I knew there was a pedophile in our fort, I'd be the first one to throw handcuffs on him. I mean, she absolutely 100% lied. But this is who wants to be our sheriff in Racine County. So you can see why, you know, this turned into an obsession almost of getting this information out.
Absolutely.
This is crazy, and the media clearly was not reporting on this, Jim,
No.
because none of us knew anything about this. I mean, maybe if you were in Racine, maybe you knew that this deputy had been sentenced to 65 years, but beyond the borders of Racine, I clearly had not heard anything about this case.
No, and you know what? It was designed that way. This was not to be a major bust of, you know, the pedophilia ring that was running. It was running in our municipalities. I mean, it wasn't running. You know, I mean, I'm sure they have it outside of it, but this was, you know, they got the keys. They got the keys to it. I mean, who's going to go to an officer and say, "Oh, you know, I know you're a pedophile." If you find them on these different apps, I mean, who's going to, who's challenging that? If it doesn't get challenged from within or reviewed, audited, anything, nobody's going to touch it. And it just keeps going. And this was the perfect setup. They got keys to the kingdom kind of thing. And this guy wanted to get into child, he was asking if he could get into the child abuse department or whatever they have. So, I mean, this guy was actually moving right in. He'd have had exactly what he was looking for. So, we talk about election fraud. There's so much. We have lost our this really, when you have something this disturbing, you have to think, what has happened? What are our bureaucrats doing? Where are the questioning? Where are the actual, instead of protecting this Mandigal from, this 10-day suspension, which was like a personal holiday, why are we protecting this? Look at the fallout that happens here, and the citizens who are abused, and not only the citizens that pay the taxes for this to happen. And we're not coming clean. I just saw today on Facebook, because we're putting this stuff out in Racine County, and we're hammering and we're working hard on it. And this Manigault writes up an evil group of watchdogs in Racine. And she writes this whole thing about, when I get attacked, I work harder at being, I'm not going to let this happen. I work harder. I'm thinking to myself, this woman's a psychopath. I mean, when the hell do you stop, say, I made a mistake, I should have done this, people were abused, children were abused, animals were abused. Unbelievable.
It's hard for me to wrap my head around the things you're saying, Jim. When we're talking about people in position of authority, like a deputy, someone you think that you can trust and you can turn to with any of your problems, these young children who were being abused.
Oh, I've got a lot of things going through my mind. You see these police officers taking kids out Christmas shopping every year. And it makes me wonder, as I'm listening to you, what happens then?
Well, that's the issue here. I mean, the trust, you lose trust.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where you need trust. You want to be able to trust. Certainly, you want to trust your officers. I mean, they should be the cream of the crop. They should be the best at what they do and the most upstanding. I mean, this Kite, he was written up in the paper for learning how to do sign language, and he was, and then the judge even said, "Did you learn sign language so you could groom children that couldn't hear?" I mean,
most likely, yeah.
Yeah, it's just so what we go ahead, Scott.
So there's a question from the backstage. I'm just going to read. Corey B wonders, what keeps the victims quiet?
It's a good question. We don't know where the 5-year-old is that was up in Wisconsin Dells. There's no. We've done some research on that. Can't find the 5-year-old. We don't know where it is. Now, this, you have to remember, this was Adam Westbrook's adopted son. So apparently he was married. I believe he said in one of his responses that he had been married. He was going to marry Kite at some point too, because they were in love with each other. And I mean, it's just bizarro, sicko. But this 5-year-old, where did he end up? That's a good question. Now, the Department of Justice and I believe the FBI were involved in some of this. And there are cases, Westbrook, I looked up the Westbrook case. It was a federal case. Hard to get information because it's sealed because of the tender kind of incidents. But Racine, and I'm going to make a shout out for Judge Fredrickson. He did not hide a thing. It was a circuit court. They kept it in circuit court so they could control it. But Fredrickson dumped everything out there. And when I went down to the courthouse, I just said, I'm looking for this file. And I went in there and it just unloaded. And I just kept flipping buttons and saying, I'm going to buy all this stuff. And when I walked out, I couldn't believe what I had. But, there are judges out there that understand, and they knew that at some point, someone's going to look at this. And, it was just one of those things that discussions at meetings and coffee shops that we would meet at, and we just start talking about it, and that's what happened. So it's not that we're so smart. It's just that we just saw that things weren't right.
Wow, Jim.
Well, you know, and what my opinion is of why the victims would remain silent is you're looking to, you know, as I was growing up, I was always taught to respect authority, respect police officers, and those are the ones that you can trust. So if a child's being abused, you by an officer,
who do they turn to?
who do you turn to first of all, and who is going to believe you? You know,
Right.
so a child probably won't say anything because they don't know who to trust anymore, and who's going to believe them?
That's right. That's right. Well, the 9-year-old finally said, the one that the woman's had, her husband was a dog trainer. The 9-year-old actually came in and said it was weird, something weird happened, and obviously, and then she had said, he's getting counseling and there's some things. How many happened? So and I think the worst part here is the lack of their duty as officers, at least the management part of it, to say, hey, we got a problem here. We're not going to be perfect. We know that. But why it took so long and why it was hidden and why these things were put under the rug, and even at the time they found him, they didn't do it because it goes back to this upper management and it goes into the, you talk about the blue or the black code or blue or brown code. And part of that's too. But even now we're seeing that there's some individuals that are connected and there are feeding information because there's good officers out there. They mean well and they're sickened by it all too. And they're watching it and they're at the point now where they're saying, we got to talk. And we're starting to, they're not gonna come on, our Rumble channel. I can guarantee that. But we are getting some leads, you might say.
And one of our listeners, Jim, is getting ahead of me a little bit because I wanted to ask you a little bit and have you talk about the endorsements that this captain has received for her in her campaign for
Right.
sheriff. And Jeremy asked, was it mentioned that Robin Boss has endorsed this lady running for sheriff, and not only Robin Boss but others? Can you just expand on that? And has anybody backtracked? I mean,
No, no, they're actually what we did, hot government, and I'm gonna make another shout out to Harry Waite. Now this is we all know he was the election, the guy that blew the election, my vote wide open, went for 3 or 4 years to court. So now Harry, after his court date, he has a civic duty because the judge even said that he can continue his civic duties. Harry has filed, I want to think, 12 different open records and letters to these persons that endorsed her and asked, did you know prior to your endorsement that she 8 months earlier had known on this whole kite? And we had given them all the information. And we gave to 21 supervisors in Racine County, the sheriff, the assistant sheriff, the DA. I mean, all of them. We gave letters to all of them. And then we sent for open records requests to the HR. We sent to the Kenosha Sheriff's Department, the Racine Sheriff's Department, a number of other open records. But we also filed with the Wisconsin Licensing of Police Officers Board asking that they investigate Carrie Mandigal, and we recommend that they remove her as a police officer since the administration in Racine won't do it. So we did that. We also sent a certified letter to the FBI asking for an investigation. We covered every base we can. So what we're trying to do is corner them, trap them, box them in a degree. So now the only thing that came back was one supervisor, a woman, and she came back and said, I want to look more into this. It's disturbing or something like that. And we kind of left it. But what we're going to do is another round of letters here, and then we're going to go after them. These people, I don't care where your loyalties lie. This move be way beyond that. This is now down to our exact who are you as a human? So that's the next step. We're going to give them one more chance to respond, and then we're going to go after them hard.
Well, that's good to hear. I can't believe that only one of your county supervisors said this is disturbing or whatever adjective you use to describe it. I would think that number would be like all of them would find this
I think that,
beyond
But you know
disturbing.
what? I mean, she comes back and says, I'm doubling down, basically. You know, I'm these people. I mean, the lies about me. Are you kidding me? These are transcripts. These are official complaints. These are stamped documents. Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? The hearsay or lies? I mean, this is the thing, and voters have to understand that. And I did get a call from someone who wants to help, and they want to send out some literature into Racine County. So, you know, as this spreads a little bit, I don't know where we're actually going to go with it now. We just dropped the Monday morning. Yeah, this last Monday, 7 a.m. we dropped it. So, and I want a couple of shout outs to people at H.O.T. Michelle, particularly, she just did a great job on that website. And that's RacineAccountability.com, RacineAccountability.com. And that is a very thorough website. And if you go down to the end, toward the bottom of the site, it talks about if you want to read the documents, kite versus the state. And we've got them on online on Flip, and there's no redactions, nothing. It's all there. So as you read, you may want to take a little breather here and there, but RacineAccountability.com.
Okay, so we're putting that in the chat in both Rumble and YouTube, RacineAccountability.com, and that link will be in the chat. Please click on that link and save it. And we need to spread the word about this. This is just crazy. And again, you know that Kite was arrested and put in prison, and some others have been incarcerated for this, but this goes way beyond, I'm sure, these 4 people or 5 people, whatever that number is. And it just very alarming that there's still this support for this candidate who.
Well, and you know, you said, well, Scott just said about how far it reaches or whatnot. And you mentioned like Oconomowoc, Outagamie County. Do you know of any other? Pardon?
Winnebago County.
Winnebago. Do you know of any other counties as of yet?
We don't, and I'm not sure we're going to find it this way. We're going to have to go through these other counties and get the documentation there, and then see if there's some links that we can attach to. I mean, this is a network. You know, it's not like you know, I mean, we discuss things. I mean, then you tell me, well, I know someone else, and I know someone else, and then pretty soon this network gets bigger and bigger. That's exactly what happens here. And if you go through the complaint, there is a section there where they're talking, and I believe it's Westfield and Kite are talking back and forth. And they use they called it, are you on sessions? Sessions now is another undetected chat like signal, but it's able to not be picked up by law enforcement. So like, I think it's Stingray or one of them, and they actually talk about, you know, I mean, they actually are free to do this because of these apps that are not traceable. So here you got a cop of a sheriff bypassing the whole system. How many more are like this?
Exactly. And when you go to those other counties, you know, what are you going to find? You know?
And I wanted to, go ahead, Rick.
Well, I was going to say, Corey B put a link in the chat a little bit earlier. I'm trying to find it. It was about, oh, here it is. Outagamie, a former Outagamie County HR director sentenced to 10 years child pornography. So there's a possible connection right there.
Well, that definitely is a connection. Yep.
Yes, that is one of them that Jim talked about.
Yep.
But what I mean is when you get into those records, will that expand out even further?
Well, they haven't given the transcript up yet because I went in there and I think that Adam Westbrook is his name. that one has not been, that transcript's not been released. I don't know why, but it's coming. So I've got kind of a checking on that one. One of the things I wanted to, before we scoot out, but is the endorsements. You know, Assembly Speaker Robin Voss, he gave her the 2025 First Responder of the Year award at the Capitol building. This was all after this whole incident happened. So Harry, again, asked Robin Voss if he knew that if Carrie had already known prior to this that Kite was a perpetrator in the sheriff's department. And he just, no response. And all of them, the county execs, so all those got letters. What did you know? Who did you know? When did you know? And did you know at this time that of the endorsement? And right now it's dead silence on a lot of them. As a matter of fact, most of them. So, but Robin Voss is interesting because this is the pick. And I think there's more out there because Robin Voss does not do anything that doesn't benefit Robin Voss. And he's got an individual in Union Grove that's running for his old assembly seat, and the sheriff who, the current sheriff, which was questionable as far as I'm concerned. But this one here is the cover. She's going to be the cover for Racine County. And I truly believe that that's what it is. You don't get all this endorsements, instantly. Literally it was a setup. It unfolded one day that this is the sheriff. Everybody loves her. She's great. She makes great cookies, all this kind of stuff. Well, when you see that, you know something's wrong. And certainly when Robin Voss is the leading, you know something's wrong.
Well, they always seem to be setting up their line of succession every which way they turn. And this doesn't surprise me that they would set up like what you just explained.
And my initial thought was when you talk about the people that continue to support this person's candidacy, and I got to repeat the name over and over again, Madrigal, because people need to understand that this is not going to be good. But when you talk about the people who continue to support her candidacy, it makes you wonder if they're looking for someone who will be in that role and will help continue to cover things up.
Exactly.
I believe that's right.
I'm sorry, Jim?
I believe that's right. I think that's what it is. I think it's a defensive move. If no one looks and she doesn't talk and she can cover things up, then we're good. We're good to go. My legacy stands.
So she covered up once, and now we know we can trust her enough to cover up anything we do in the future.
Right. And again, now she's tainted. And, with this information, if not that information is out, it becomes an Epstein situation. I know what you did and I'll use it to my advantage. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't end. Even though you see some of these people move out of their positions, do they really move or do they just put in someone that's a default individual?
Absolutely. They when I hear these politicians say, well, I'm up next, it's my turn, or something to that effect, now you know why they say it.
Yeah, it's just funny you say that, right? Because the DA in Racine, her name's Trish Hansen, calls Carrie Mandigal my girl, my gal. This is the DA.
It begs the question: is this about additional cover-ups? And boy, I hope the right person is elected in this case, and maybe dives into this a little bit deeper to see how far these tentacles go. For maybe some of these people who want to be protected by their hand-picked sheriff.
It makes me think of another sheriff in a county across the state that allegedly committed suicide just about 2 years ago. Well, I have two questions. Did he actually commit suicide? Or was it he didn't like what was going on and trying to expose it, so they take him out.
Yep.
So
You know
Jim,
what?
go ahead.
No, I just, what I used to believe, at one point in my life, I was like, okay, I just accepted it. I believed it.
Mhm.
I don't do that anymore. Everything is questioned now. I mean, anything that you believe in, there's some of the basics that you thought, well, no one would do this. Well, I mean, I'm shocked now.
Yep.
But, I guess it's where we're at now. So we just continue to fight like most of the people here tonight.
It's
You know,
interesting because you brought some things that clearly are disturbing to all of us. Uh, but a few years ago when I heard about Pizzagate, or several years ago, whenever that was, and I heard the the code names, and I just never thought it would happen in my backyard. I thought that, okay, that was a New York thing, or a DC thing, wherever it was.
When I
And
always thought that Wisconsin was the safest place to live.
it's really disturbing to me. So Jim, we're almost up against the hour, and we don't want to keep people.
1 second. Corey asked, didn't Hanson go to Whitewater with the other Whitewater Mafia?
that I don't know. I
Okay.
wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know that.
So Jim, with the information that you provided tonight, what can my listeners do to help further the cause and further the work that you and your uh, fellow HOT members are doing?
I would like, if, if people up in the certain areas could really, here's the thing, in dog groomers, I mean, it sounds as sick as it is. They did charge a dog groomer. I think they stuck him in jail for a year. He was abusing animals that, so any information you got that you could send down, because we're not given anything. We always have to hunt for it. So if there's any information in some of these communities, even the small communities, because this guy lived on a corner in a cute little neighborhood in Union Grove, Wisconsin. Kids riding their bikes past the house. I mean, just looked like the typical American home and a community. And here you got this absolute predator living there, working for the sheriff's department. So I can guarantee it's happening in other areas. We've got attorneys that were involved with this. So we got to keep our eyes open. Anything you guys got, we got hotmail or hotgovernment@gmail.com. Send it. I read that daily and send it. If you got any links that we can just continue on, because this is really statewide, and I think we have to really consider that it's beyond Racine County.
I was talking to AJ about this uh, the other day, yesterday, and we were talking about the number of children who go missing every year, and we referred to a couple of, there was a young girl from Ripon who had gone missing, and this goes back many years ago, but it's like, we hear about these stories, and we don't want to think that law enforcement is involved, but then you hear stories like this where there was a, a deputy tied up in this evil place, and I don't know. It's
Remember that video that we watched about 2 years ago? I want to say it was out in Colorado. The boy went on his newspaper route, and then the dad would always go with, and the one time the dad did not go with, he is abducted. And long story short, the mom found out, I want to say it was like 2 years later, that the police were in on it. The father didn't go that morning because he owed that police department something. I can't remember what. And found out that the dad sacrificed basically his son to the
well,
police department.
and I want to reiterate something that Jim said earlier. There are good law enforcement police officers who want to do the good thing. There are a lot of them, and this isn't. We're not pointing the finger at all police.
The girl from Ripon, her name.
Okay, so it was Regina Eckstite from Ripon was the name that AJ threw out. But again, we're not suggesting that all police are in on this, and they're clearly not. They're good police officers who want to protect us and our children and our pets. from people like this. But so Jim, we are up against the hour.
Yeah.
You got more coming up though. That let me just shut this off for just a second. As soon as my computer's working. So, did I read, Jim, that there might be someone else that you have your?
Well, you know, we've got so much material, and we keep stumbling on stuff, and we keep digging in, and we do have some more. There's more on this, not as dark as this guy, but there are other issues out there that really should be brought to the attention of really the communities. And I'm not talking Milwaukee and Madison. I'm talking small communities that I think there's stuff going on in these small communities that just fly under the radar. And I'd like to come back, Scott, at some future time, and we can kind of go over a couple other things.
Absolutely, anytime. In fact, somebody in the back, Corey in the backstage, said we need you to come back to continue this talk and provide any updates on the stuff that you're finding. So absolutely, I'd love to have you back on.
And I think that the next time you're on, you're probably going to have a lot of questions from the audience, because they're going to look at this website and they'll have a lot of questions, I'm sure.
So Red, what was the website again? It was.
It's Ripon. I seen the Ripon earlier. Sorry, it's RacineAccountability.com. And I did put it in all three of the chats.
And Jim, you said all this information is available on that website.
Correct. You just go down far enough. There's a couple audios that are very, very good. It explains those apps. Audio 2, there's a 2-part series on there, and those are about 20 or 30 minutes each. But I learned from those. The story I told you about Mandergal and the connection with Kite is one part, but the other part is how those apps work. And and I learned from that, and I actually learned a few other things as I went through on some of these emojis, what they mean when they talk, and they talk on Twitter. They actually pick people up on Twitter and then move them off to some of these other apps. So there's information to glean from there.
So we're going to direct people to that website, and you can follow H.O.T on Telegram, and I think they have a Facebook account as well.
Yes, and they also have the Rumble channel.
And so please follow H.O.T. They do incredible work here in Wisconsin. And Jim, I would be doing a disservice to the people of Racine County. There is another candidate for this sheriff's position. Am I right?
There is another candidate. His name is Henry Perez, and I believe it's Perez for Racine is his website, and he could use some donations. I can tell you that.
Okay, so folks, if you live in Racine and you are going to be voting for your sheriff come August 11th, please check out Henry Perez, because this is an alternative to the corruption that Jim just exposed, and someone who clearly, in my opinion, not fit for the job and shouldn't even be considered. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Well, Jim,
I'm speechless.
Jim, on behalf of everybody at Tin Hat Nation, thank you for joining us on Tin Hat Thursday, and I do hope that you'll come back and share more with us as this story develops.
I absolutely will. Thanks for having me.
All right,
Absolutely.
awesome. And you are welcome to hang around. You know the routine here at Ripon Rabbit Hole, that there may have some questions for you. If you're able, you're more than welcome to hang around. Well, Red, that's a wrap. That was a very important show. I hope people will share this out, because Jim Spodick and H.O.T government, they bring the A game every time.
Every time.
And
I always tell people, I trust what they put out, because I know that they triple check everything. They always cite their information. They do not just put things out there willy-nilly. They always back up what they say.
Oh yeah,
and that's why I trust them.
And they dig deep, and they're not afraid to expose, as you can see, exposing a sheriff candidate.
And this needs to be exposed. I mean, as I'm sitting here listening to him First of all, I'm speechless. I mean, I knew things were going on, but I think about when my girls were little and he kept mentioning smaller towns. You know, there was one police officer, I would like to believe he was a good guy. He always seemed very concerned about the kids, like if they got hurt or whatnot. But then now I'm sitting here thinking about it. Was he concerned for the right reasons, or was it something like this?
Well, and now we fight for our grandchildren, Red, and we know that's the one thing that keeps us in the fight is our grandchildren and other people's children. Our kids are grown, but boy,
Absolutely.
this is very glaring that we have to fight harder to protect our children and our pets.
Yeah, don't forget your pets.
So Red, that'll be it. It was good to be back. We were dark last week at this time.
Yes.
It's good to be back, and we will be back again on
Wednesday.
and who knows, maybe Mr. Spodick will have all kinds of new information, and we will have to have him back either Wednesday or Thursday.
Absolutely.
For part 2 to finish this conversation and any new information. AJ the Rippin' Rabbit will be live Friday night at
Tomorrow
8
night.
p.m. Central with another episode of Rippin' Rabbit Hole Live.
And then Sunday at 10:30, backstage only. Backstage only is 2 or more gathered, and we are in John. And I tell you, John has been just amazing. So that is not broadcast, it's not recorded. Just come back and join some fellowship.
All right, so Red, that's enough for tonight. We're going to stop wasting people's time.
Because we have a republic to save.
Have a good night, folks. We will see you next week.